Selamat siang. Welcome back to another Bali COVID-19 update. This is March 23rd, 2022, and my name is Bruce. And what about the weather today? The wind speed is 1.2 kilometers per hour, not very much, and the temperature 31.4 degrees Celsius, and humidity 67%, and we have had some major storms up here in Singaraja the last couple of days. Man, everything is wet. It is definitely not the end of the rainy season, and it's just amazing. It just comes up all of a sudden, and the winds are incredible. Hoping that ends soon. And main stories today. So there were going to be two main stories. One is the addition, which many of you have probably heard about already, of more countries to the VOA on arrival in Bali. And then the other one was going to be the extension of the no quarantine throughout Indonesia. But I've been waiting for an official confirmation of that. The SE, the circular letter, which was, according to Pak Luno, supposed to come out yesterday, and here it is almost 1 o'clock in the afternoon on the 23rd, and it's still not out. And so, as usual, sabar, patience, and so I'm not going to make that the lead story because it's not official yet. But there is a story there on that, and you can read that, but there's no details because, well, the circular has not been released yet and will probably be released shortly after I upload this. And it has almost been 2 years now that I've been doing these COVID videos. Amazing, isn't it? The first one was April 1st. It wasn't called a COVID video then, but it was about the COVID video. And it just happened to be when the government decided to ban foreigners from entering Indonesia because of the increasing number of cases. And so there is a link here if you want to go back and look at that and see what things were like here almost 2 years ago. That was April 1st, 2020. It's amazing. I've been doing this for 2 years. I don't know. I hope that this ends soon. Lead story, so two lead stories. One is the VOA, and the other one is that Bali has moved to level 2 finally. Yes, we are at level 2, and we will be at level 2 until April 4th. And, well, that story is coming up in just a minute. So let's take a look at the numbers. National new cases, 7,464. National recoveries, 29,084. National deaths, 170, so the deaths are still up there. Bali new cases, 76, and this is one of the reasons that we are at level 2 now. Bali recoveries, 108, and Bali deaths, 1, so that's good. So the numbers are relatively stable, relatively in that they're below 10,000, but they've been jumping around because the day before yesterday, that is Monday, the case number was 4,699. And so today it's up to 7,464. And so we are definitely not out of this yet, but we're below 10,000, and so that's the good news. And if we take a look at the trends, well, the downward trend is still going on. The peak of the third wave was the end of February, and the numbers decreased quite sharply since then. On February 23rd, we had 61,488 new cases. And so we're way down, and you've got a huge amount of cases still in Korea, and there's a couple of segments on Korea today. And I was talking to a friend of mine in Singapore last night. He said still getting lots of cases there, but everybody is out wandering around just like usual, except him. He doesn't want to catch the virus, so he's been staying at home. So the numbers are positive, especially here in Bali. We're still below 100 cases. We have been all week. And, well, all week since the last update 3 days ago. So let's get on to the main story, which is the extension of the VOA in Bali to 42 countries now. Okay, and the other main story, and the last two videos, I've been talking about this. First video, I talked about the possibility of extending the VOA. The second video, I listed the countries that the government here in Bali was suggesting And now it is a fact. It is legal. The SE, the circular letter, has come out, and so this is effective March 22nd. If you are legally minded, the Surat Edaran Nomor IMI 0532 GR0101 Town 2022. What are the countries eligible for VOA? South Africa, United States, Saudi Arabia, Argentina, Australia, the Netherlands, Belgium, Brazil, Brunei Darussalam, Denmark, Philippines, Finland, Hungary, India, United Kingdom, Italy, Japan, Germany, Cambodia, Canada, South Korea, Laos, Malaysia, Mexico, Myanmar, Norway, France, Poland, Qatar, New Zealand, the Seychelles, Singapore, Spain, Sweden, Switzerland, Thailand, China, Tunisia, Turkey, UAE, and Vietnam. Okay, the 42 countries can get a VOA. And what will you need? Let's go over that in case you've forgotten or you've just watched this channel or you're confused. You need a valid and still valid national passport that's good for 6 months, a return ticket or a pass to continue the journey to another country. And there's been some arguments about this today on social media because people are asking how long does it have to be for? If you get the 30-day visa on arrival, and then it can be extended one time, 60 days, talk about that more in just a minute. Okay, is your ticket got to be good for 30 days or 60 days? Some people are saying 60 days, some people are saying 30 days. My guess is 30 days because you're not necessarily going to get that extension. The extension is up to immigration authorities, and sometimes people are denied it. And so if you've got a ticket for 60 days, nah. Okay, what is the easy way to deal with that? Book a ferry from Batam to Singapore. It's cheap. You can just blow it off. You don't need it if you get the 60 days, and then you can take off on a plane, or you could use the ferry later. You can extend it. That's what a lot of people do. Or if you're just planning on going back, yeah, you can make your airline thing. But you do need to have a ticket, something that shows that you are leaving. Is it 30 days or 60 days? I'm thinking 30 days, but I do not know for sure. And then other documents required in accordance with the provision of the head of the unit handling COVID-19 task force. You, of course, have to be fully vaccinated. You do not have to have a booster shot. You do need to be fully vaccinated. And you will need the Peduli Lindungi app, although a lot of people show up here and it doesn't work, and so they've got hard documents. So for me, as you know, I just said this many times, I'm very cautious. I would have hard documents. I would have this on my phone. I would have this on my laptop. I would have it everywhere, just in case, because better to be prepared than not. Okay, and so I said 30 days. So you get maximum 30 days with the visa on arrival. It can be extended at most one time for a period of 30 days at the immigration office whose working area covers the residence of the foreigner and cannot be transferred. Okay, so that means you get 30 days, then you have to go to immigration and extend it for another 30 days. People are saying, some people are saying on the internet, you can get 60 days at the airport. You can get to 30 days and then pay for another 30 days. That is not true. Here is the proof right here, according to this. Could it be changed? Yes, of course. Anything can be changed anywhere in the world, and especially in Indonesia. But at this point, no, you cannot get another 30 days at the airport on arrival. Foreigners who hold the visit visa on special arrival tourism cannot apply for a new stay permit through a visa application. So once your 30 days or your 60 days are done, you have to leave the country, and then you can apply for a new visa outside of Indonesia. You cannot do it here if you're on a VOA. And you are allowed to leave from anywhere in the country. So you could be, let's say, go to Manado, and you could leave from Manado. You could leave from Jakarta, Surabaya. You get my point. The cost, 500,000 rupiahs. And so that was what is in the circular letter that just came out on March 21st. Any questions? Leave a comment. If I don't answer it, somebody else will. I do answer all comments. Sometimes it takes me a couple of days. Unfortunately, things are just really busy here. And so this is the second lead story. I was just going to have one lead story, but then this came out just a few minutes ago, and I decided to put it in there because it is good news. Positive rates and deaths drop drastically. Bali returns to level 2. And so we've been at level 3 for a number of weeks now, and according to Imade Renton, the secretary of the Bali COVID-19 task force, he said assurance was obtained based on the instruction of the Minister of Home Affairs, number 18202, concerning PPKM for Java Bali region. And so we are officially at level 2 from March 22nd, yesterday, until April 4th, next week. And why did we go to level 2? Well, it's based on a number of factors. One is the daily positive numbers, which continued to decline. In fact, in the last 5 days, the daily positive cases in Bali have been below 100, and recovery rate has jumped sharply as well. And the death rate continues to fall. So all those put together, and we're down at level 2. And that is good news, because it means schools can go back to full on. Well, will they do that? I don't know. I hope so. Right now, my granddaughter is in school 2 hours a day. And as I've said before, 2 hours a day is better than nothing, but I would like to see her in there all day. And so I'm hoping that with the move to level 2, they will go back to full-time schooling here. And also booster vaccinations, or the third dose, have been encouraging. As of March 21st, 35,734 people have received booster vaccinations. And there are 3 regions where booster vaccinations are more than 50%. Dispar, Tabanan, and Gianyar. 3 regions at 40%, Badung, Klungkung, and Bangli. And 3 at 30%, Karangasem, Buleleng, and Jembrana. And so, good news, we're at level 2. Okay, and let's get on with the rest of the segments. 2 main stories today, of course. One is the end of quarantine, and so I'm recording this on Tuesday. The official circular has not come out yet, but it is due out today. The end of the quarantine was announced yesterday, and so that's all over Indonesia, not just Bali. So you can come in anywhere and be without quarantine. So let's take a look at that. Indonesia ends all quarantine requirements in broad reopening. The government will expand its quarantine-free travels around the rest of the country after a successful 2-week trial in Bali, Batam, and Bintan, where infections remained low. So Pak Sandiaga Uno on Monday said that the quarantine will be gone. So visitors have to be fully vaccinated in order to come in. That does not include the booster at this point. And then you're going to take the PCR test when you come in. If it's negative, you're free. Why are they doing this? Well, I don't know. There are a lot of reasons. One, you want to get things back on track economically and get the tourists coming in. 2, everybody is doing this now in Asia, and I don't think Indonesia wants to be the only country left out. And 3, cases have dropped more than 90% from the February peak, even though our deaths still are relatively high. We had 154 people yesterday nationwide. Pak Uno said, "We are now preparing to transition to a new post-pandemic economic order, and we will carry out this normalization in the next few months. If everything goes smoothly after Eid, because Eid is coming up in May, then the process will continue so that we can expand our economic activities." And so Ramadan starts in another, what's today, the 22nd, 23rd, a little over a week from now. And then after the fasting month, there's Eid, and of course, lots of movement. So Muslims this year will be allowed to carry out religious activities during the month, and they will be allowed to do mudik. Mudik is when everybody goes home, as long as they're fully vaccinated and they adhere to health protocols, according to Pak Uno. And according to this Bloomberg article, the annual holiday migration typically sees more than 81 million people head home. Wow. This has been banned for the last couple of years, but people have been doing it anyway. This year, they're going to be free to do it. The government is waiting to see how this is going to turn out afterwards. Is there going to be a huge spike? Is not? Are people going to adhere to health protocols? Social distancing during mudik does not exist. If you have looked at any of the photos or videos of thousands of motorcycles just lined up waiting to cross, coming into Bali, waiting to cross over from Java. And I'll see if I can find one and put it up here. So good news. And the circular should come out today. And so by tomorrow when I upload this should all be official. And the border reopening is also set to bolster Indonesia's role as the host of the G20 this year. The country aims to use the flurry of meetings of officials from the world's biggest economies to help revive tourism revenue in Bali and nearby islands. And as I said, everybody is getting into the act. So Vietnam, Malaysia, Philippines have already announced that they're waiving quarantine rules for international travelers. Thailand and Cambodia eased testing requirements in order to help boost tourism. The tourism industry in Southeast Asia accounted for 12.1% of the economic output and employed 42 million workers in 2019, according to the Asian Development Bank. And I was talking about the cooking oil crisis the other day, and well, here's some more on that. Experts criticize lack of government control in cooking oil scarcity price hike. Nurasi Institute CEO and public policy expert Ahmed Nur Hidayat said on Sunday that the government lacks the competence in controlling the problem of cooking oil scarcity and other staple products. And the Nurasi Institute's co-founder, Fadhil Hasan, believes that Indonesia's domestic economy will face the threat of high inflation amidst the process of economic recovery, which is currently starting to be evident. And well, inflation is happening everywhere in the world. And the Association of Agriculture Experts Deputy Lily Pellizzari believes that the government must be able to control the availability of such commodities instead of just imposing regulations. Pellizzari believes that the cooking oil market is controlled by a small group. As much as 40% are concentrated on 4 major companies, and it needs firm government control as regulators. And in a different article, they called it the cooking oil mafia. That has become a popular phrase. And so bad news, especially with Ramadan coming up and lots of cooking, lots of baking. Is the price going to go down? Is the government going to step in and take control of the situation? Just have to wait and see. And here's a story that I've talked about several times, and this is an update. Sexual violence crime bill, a form of Indonesia's commitment, says DPR. So the House of Representatives Speaker Puan Maharani stated that the bill of crime of sexual violence was a form of Indonesia's commitment to protecting women and children. She made this statement at the Forum of Women's Parliamentarians, which is part of the 144th session of the Inter-Parliamentary Union IPU series. She said the parliament can be an agent of change in implementing better gender equality agenda in their respective countries. In this case, Indonesia always strives to promote gender equality at every opportunity. Well, it's been a long time for the sexual violence bill. What, 10 years? I don't know. And in the recent election in Korea, gender equality was also an issue. And well, the person who wants to get rid of the gender ministry, he won. So what's going to happen there? I don't know. Speaker Maharani said in 2021 of the 73 people elected as parliament speakers worldwide, 18 of them, or 24.7%, were women. Meanwhile, the global proportion of female members of parliament has reached 26.1%, or increased by 0.6%. And so she said, we need more women in parliament. She said the only way to assure that bills are passed which promote gender equality is to get more women in parliament. And I agree with that 100%. And so finally, one last MotoGP, at least for the time being, because MotoGP is over. Jokowi congratulates all parties for a successful MotoGP Mandalika. So yes, the president was there watching the finals at a special stand at the Mandalika circuit on Sunday, and he expressed his gratitude to the NTB people, and in particular those in the Lombok Island, for their full support of the event. The winners, the top 3 place winners, received the Indonesian Grand Prix trophy from the president himself. Okay, this shows what a big deal that was. Jokowi was there and he was handing out awards. And he expressed his gratitude to all parties, both the organizers and the workers who had worked day and night to prepare this prestigious event. He said there were some problems and those need to be improved for the next time, and he is sure that it can be done. He said this is a long-term event and we will fix our flaws for next year. Most importantly, I want to congratulate everyone for their hard work. Congratulations, he emphasized. And so the Pertamina Grand Prix of Indonesia at Mandalika marked the first time the most prestigious two-wheel racing event was held back in the country again after 25 years. I didn't know we had one 25 years ago. And here's some news from up in Asia, up in Korea. So this is something right now that is impacting Koreans, but they are also going to extend this to international visitors. So as of today, Koreans who are coming back from vacation somewhere, they don't have to do quarantine anymore if they're fully vaccinated. Incheon Airport gets busier after government lifts mandatory quarantine for fully vaccinated travelers. So everybody, tourists and airport workers, were heartened Monday as the country's nearly 2-year-long mandatory quarantine for international travelers was listed for fully vaccinated people. So, starting yesterday, not today, people who completed their vaccination no more than 180 days ago or who got the third booster shot will no longer be subject to the 7-day self-quarantine upon arrival from overseas, except for those coming from Pakistan, Uzbekistan, Ukraine, and Myanmar. The quarantine exemption is expected to open up international travelers for Koreans. And a lot of Koreans that I've talked to, I have a lot of Korean friends, said, yeah, we'd love to come to Bali or go to Thailand, go out internationally. But if there's a quarantine in a place and then we come back and we've got to do a 7-day quarantine here, that's our whole vacation on quarantine. Now we have no quarantine in Indonesia at all, and they're going to have no quarantine. So hopefully we will get some more Korean visitors here. Industry watchers predict that the country may take some time before it regains this pre-COVID-19 level of international travel amid soaring oil prices and a possible stealth Omicron wave. An average of 12,565 people traveled via Incheon International Airport every day in the first 20 days of March, only about 5% of the corresponding numbers of 200,000 to 230,000 before the pandemic started. So huge drop. And more on Korea. Starting on April 1st, travelers who have been fully vaccinated overseas and registered their vaccination history with South Korea's Q-Code website will be able to enter the country without a 7-day quarantine period. Good news for those who want to go to Korea. I do. Travelers who have completed a 2-dose vaccine series at least 14 days before their travel will be considered fully vaccinated. 1 dose of Johnson & Johnson will also be accepted. If more than 180 days have passed since the traveler completed their initial vaccination series, they will need a booster shot to be considered fully vaccinated. Overseas travelers will receive a QR code through the Q-Code system, which can then be scanned at the immigration desk at the airport, according to the Korea Tourism Organization's website. The Q-Code system will ask for information such as passport number, departure, country, airlines, phone numbers, and vaccine records. And one more, travelers arriving by plane will need to show proof of a negative PCR test taken no more than 48 hours before departure. Children under the age of 6 will not need the coronavirus test to enter Korea. The easing of restrictions comes as South Korea faces its largest COVID-19 surge yet. The 429 deaths reported last Thursday were nearly 140 more than the previous one-day record set on Tuesday. So fatalities may further rise in the coming weeks considering the interval between infections, hospitalizations, and deaths. And I've talked about that in terms of the numbers here in Indonesia. But as we know, just about everybody here is dropping restrictions. They're making it easier and easier to travel. The one big thing I think that people still don't like are the PCR tests. And some countries have dropped those, some countries are only requiring one. And we'll see what happens here in Indonesia with that. And of course, big news around the world now is that Bali is open and that there's a visa on arrival and that there's no quarantine, and planes are starting to come in, and we're adding on airlines every week, and tourists are coming back. And here is a report from an Australian newspaper. Australian newspapers aren't always the kindest to Bali. Bali welcomes tourists without quarantine as Southeast Asian countries continue to scrap travel restrictions. And so one person that was interviewed here said, Bali is like a second home to me, and I hear Australians say that all the time. So as we know, Bali implemented the visa on arrival program that included Australians and tourists from 22 other countries, and so Australians are coming in. But flights are still restricted to just a couple of cities from what I hear from comments on the last video. Nyoman Santiawan, a member of Bali's tourism board and a local businessman, said that he hopes that international tourists will kickstart the local economy. But he said the number of tourists might not pick up until April and May. Why not? He said, we're happy, but this is the early days. So far, only 4 flights have arrived direct from Australia. This article says Bali's tourism is 70% dependent on tourism, but if you listen to what the governor says, he always quotes 54%, and so I'm not sure where these figures are coming from. Usually in the press you see 70%, the governor usually says 54%. What is it? I don't know. But yes, the island is heavily dependent on tourism, as we've seen the devastation that's taken place over the past 2 years with hotels closed, restaurants closed, businesses shut down all over the island, people out of work. It's been a tough 2 years, but things are looking better now, and a lot of smiling faces, as I said the other day, and that is really good news. Direct flights between Bali and Sydney and Bali and Melbourne resumed this March, and flights from Perth are supposed to start in April. And according to Mr. Santiawan, until the flights resume from Perth, there are going to be limited numbers of Australian tourists because, he said, for some Perth residents, Bali is like a second home to them. He also pointed out that travelers from Melbourne and Sydney sometimes preferred other holiday destinations in Southeast Asia like Thailand and Vietnam. And as you heard in the last video, Vietnam is opening up on April 1st. And Thailand, of course, has been open for quite a while. And in Vietnam, you'll only need to show a negative PCR test prior to arrival. Malaysia is going to allow fully vaccinated travelers in the country without quarantine starting on April 1st. And Thailand is still getting tourists flying in there. And so there is a lot of competition for the bucks, the tourist bucks, and well, I heard India and Sri Lanka as well. I haven't heard about Papua New Guinea. I really like Papua New Guinea. I would go back there if it wasn't so expensive. Papua New Guinea is our neighbor, but a flight to Papua New Guinea costs way more than a flight to Thailand, which is 4.5 hours away. And a lot of things happening on Bali now, all related to the end of quarantine, of course, and to opening up the VOA. That was a second story. What about in Jembrana? Low COVID cases, empty central isolation place. So the number of confirmed cases in Jembrana has been going down, and so according to this article, every day there's no new confirmed cases of COVID-19. So the centralized isolation places have begun to empty of residents who are staying at home and doing self-isolation because they don't have symptoms. According to the secretary of the Jembrana COVID-19 Handling Task Force, the new positive cases have started to slope down, and thus the number of isolation places are empty. For example, the 4 health centers in Jembrana and a number of hotels that were previously used for isolation are empty. He said there's no isolation anymore. Now everything is empty. Good news. And previously I talked about Buleleng and how they're closing down their places. There's still, I think, 1 open here. However, this does not mean that there are no Jembrana residents who are confirmed cases, but there's a few who are being treated in the hospital because they have comorbidities or are symptomatic. Most are self-isolating because they have no symptoms or mild symptoms, and they do not have comorbidities. And he reminded the public, as always happens in these, to strictly implement health protocols and vaccination against COVID-19, both the 2nd and 3rd doses. So, good news from Jembrana. What's happening up here in Buleleng? And the bridge. What bridge? The bridge that connects Govt and Wanagiri. So almost 3 months delay, contractor fined hundreds of millions. Wow. They really got zapped with a huge fine. The Pangong Dalam Bridge construction project that connects Git with Wanagiri in the Sukasada has finally been completed. The contractor completed the bridge after a delay of 87 days from the date of the agreement. According to the head of Public Works and Spatial Planning, the bridge was supposed to be completed by December, right, last year. However, the project implementing contractor failed to complete the project within the time stated in the contract. And so they asked for an extension of 50 days. And they extended the 50 days. The government extended him 50 days. And he was not able to complete it after the 50 days. And so he asked for another extension. And the government gave him the extension. But they also said, hey, you're going to be fined. Can you pay the fine? And he submitted a statement that showed that he would have the ability to finish the job on time and pay the fine as well. So after a delay of 87 days, the bridge, which cost 6.8 billion rupees, was finally completed. And in accordance with the regulations, the contractor paid a fine of 0.1% per day of the contract value. The total cost, 6.8 million per day, which total up to a cool 592 million rupees. And additionally, the service providers have the responsibility to carry out maintenance for 6 months. If there's damage due to construction, repairs are the responsibility of the service provider. And so we have a bridge, and I have not been on it. Well, I haven't been down to Denpasar in, I don't know, 2 years, over 2 years, since the pandemic started. I haven't been down to Denpasar, and so I've got to go on this bridge sometime. I'm just waiting for the weather to get clear so that I don't get caught in rainstorms, because I hate being up in the mountains in the rain. And then I'm going to do some traveling. And some more on Buleleng. I talked in the last video, or was it the video before that, about the vaccination push in Bali and how Buleleng was last, and there was 30% was what they were trying to get, and I talked about that a couple of weeks ago when we first talking about opening up here without quarantine. Complete booster vaccination in Buleleng reaches target. So the commitment of the Buleleng Regency government in accelerating the achievement of booster vaccinations continues. And so there is information out from the government every day about what desas, what kampungs, what banjars are having the vaccinations for the day. And so this is not only through centralized vaccination, but through the cross-sectoral joint vaccination movement that goes directly to villages in Kelurahan throughout Buleleng Regency. So on Saturday, Buleleng COVID-19 Handling Task Force successfully reached 30.21%, according to the Coordinator for Data and Information of Buleleng COVID-19 Task Force, Katut Suwarmawan, and the more I say his name, the better I get at it. It's a long one, longer than mine. Furthermore, according to this article, the implementation of booster vaccines in Puskesmasan and villages will continue to be carried out, considering that the enthusiasm level of the community is still considered high for vaccinations. Suwarmawan added that vaccination event in villages is not only for boosters, but also to provide services for people who haven't had the first or the second shot. And Pak Suwarmawan reminded people to get with the program and get vaccinated, and let's carry out health and safety protocols, as people always say here. And so good news for Buleleng. We're getting more vaccinations and the boosters are going up, and I hope that continues on in the future. And some more on what's happening in Bali. Despite the pandemic, Dispar Klungkung targets 51,000 tourist visits in 2022. And so the Klungkung Regency Tourism Office has set this target, and the conditions are much different for tourist visits, of course, now as before the pandemic started, when hundreds of thousands of visitors came to Klungkung Regency. The head of the Klungkung Tourism Office, Anaka Gungade Putra Widana, said that the target is 51,000, and that was set considering that the condition of the tourism sector is still being overshadowed by COVID-19 pandemic. And the plan is to spread out these 51,000 visitors tours, 36,000 for Nusa Penida, and 15,000 for the Klungkung mainland. And how is the government planning on reaching the target of 51,000? Well, in order to achieve it, various tourism promotions will be carried out, starting from promoting using social media and holding festivals. It's just that for the festival, it's not certain where, when, and with what budget. Okay, I like that. Let's announce it. We have no idea how we're going to do it, when we're going to do it, where we're going to do it, but we're going to do it. Okay, good. According to Pakwadana, he said, there is a budget, but its implementation is still being studied. And before the pandemic, tourist visits to Klungkung in 2017, 423,625, and in 2018, 433,334. Wow, I've forgotten after 2 years just how packed this island gets with tourists. Are we going to see anything like this year? I don't know. We'll find out coming up in June and July when the high season, the traditional high season comes. Things are looking up, right? This is positive time. Time for update and wrap up. No update today, and short wrap up. Got a lot of stuff to do today as usual. And what's the wrap up? Well, good news that VOA has been extended to 42 countries, and if and when the circular comes out, good news that the no quarantine has been extended throughout the whole country. That is going to be positive. We are getting people in here, and you can take a look and see Bobo the monkeys and see what's going on there. There was another guy who was doing interesting ones, but he seems to have dropped off the radar. So if you're in Bali and you want to make a comment, let us know how things are going where you are. Are you seeing tourists around? Are restaurants opening, stores opening? Does it look like people are staying in hotels? Domestic tourists, international tourists. And that is about it for today. If you found this video helpful, informative, non-confusing, non-irritating, amusing, please give it a thumbs up. That helps it in the YouTube algorithm to have it commended. And if you haven't subscribed, please consider subscribing. Videos are every Wednesday and Sunday. And on Sunday, we also have the cooking videos with my wife and I. And the last one was put up a couple of days ago, and that was on chicken curry. And there is going to be a vegetarian one on Sunday, potato fritters. And, well, those are really good. And if you are a person that doesn't eat meat, that's something that you can cook. And not too difficult as usual. So thanks for viewing. Be kind to someone today. Stay safe. And I will see you on Sunday.